Right now, as you watch this video, there are plastic particles in your blood. Not because you did anything wrong. Not because you live near a factory or eat particularly badly. Simply because you are alive on Earth in 2026. So welcome to another video of the Divine Narrative. And today, we are talking about how plastic conquered the world and why we can't stop it. So let's get started. Microplastics have been found in human blood, in brain tissue, in the testicles, in the hearts, lungs, livers, spleens, and kidneys. They have been found in the placentas of unborn children in the first stool of newborn babies. Scientists now describe the situation with a phrase that should stop you in your tracks. We are born pre-polluted. This is not a fringe finding. It has been confirmed across hundreds of independent peer-reviewed studies published in the world's most respected medical journals. And here is the part that should genuinely disturb you. We have no idea what it means. The material that made modern life possible, that is in every package you touch, every bottle you drink from, every piece of clothing you wear, has quietly moved inside the human body without anyone's permission. Faster than science can evaluate it, and faster than any government has regulated it. This is the complete story of plastic. How it was born, how it conquered the world, what it is doing inside us, and why, despite knowing all of this, we are producing more of it every single year. The miracle material, Baekeland and the invention that changed everything, 1907. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to a laboratory in Yonkers, New York in 1907. Baekeland was a Belgian-American chemist who had already made his fortune selling a photographic paper technology to Eastman Kodak. He was now working on a different problem, finding a synthetic substitute for shellac, a natural resin made from LAC beetles, which was in short supply and used extensively in electrical insulation. What he produced instead was something entirely new, a material made by combining phenol and formaldehyde under heat and pressure. It was hard, waterproof, heat-resistant, non-conductive. It could be molded into any shape, and it never decomposed. He called it Bakelite, and he knew immediately what he had. In his diary entry for July 11, 1907, now considered one of the most consequential sentences in industrial history, he wrote, "Unless I am badly mistaken, this invention will prove important in the future." He was not badly mistaken. Bakelite was marketed with a slogan that captured both its magic and its curse. The material of 1,000 uses. Telephones, radios, billiard balls, camera bodies, jewelry, electrical sockets. Within 20 years, it was everywhere. And for the first time in human history, a manufactured material existed that nature had no mechanism to break down. That fact was noted at the time as a feature. Nobody yet understood it was the defining problem. The Golden Age, how plastic took over the world in 30 years, 1950-1980. World War II changed everything about plastic, as it changed everything about the 20th century. The war created an enormous demand for lightweight, durable, cheap materials. Military applications drove the mass development of nylon, polyester, polyethylene, PVC, and polystyrene. America built 800 plants manufacturing synthetic materials during the war years. When the war ended, those plants needed new customers. They found them in the American consumer. Post-war prosperity and the rise of the suburban middle class created an extraordinary market for convenience. Tupperware, plastic bags, disposable cups, PVC pipes replacing copper, synthetic fabrics replacing cotton and wool. By 1960, plastic had replaced traditional materials in thousands of applications, and it was cheaper than almost everything it replaced. In 1950, the world produced 2 million tons of plastic per year. By 1980, that number had risen to 88 million tons, a 44-fold increase in 30 years. And crucially, the industry had made a strategic choice that would define the environmental crisis of the next century. Rather than focusing on durable, long-lasting plastic products, manufacturers discovered the real money was in single-use packaging. A bottle takes 30 seconds to use. It takes 450 years to decompose. The economics were perfect. For the manufacturer, the environmental mathematics were a catastrophe waiting to unfold. The chemistry, what plastic actually is and why it never dies. To understand why plastic pollution is so uniquely difficult, you need to understand what plastic actually is at the molecular level. Plastics are polymers, long chains of repeating molecular units called monomers, derived almost entirely from fossil fuels. Oil and gas are refined into chemicals like ethylene and propylene, which are then linked together under heat and pressure into these vast molecular chains. The genius of the structure is also its curse. These polymer chains are extraordinarily stable. Nature has spent 3.8 billion years evolving microorganisms that can break down biological materials: wood, leaves, proteins, bone. Almost nothing in nature has evolved to break down synthetic polymer chains, because synthetic polymer chains have only existed for about 100 years. Evolution hasn't had time to catch up. Scientists believe that all the plastic ever made, besides either entani or and sound how besonid, which has been incinerated, still exists on Earth in some form. When plastic is exposed to sunlight and physical stress, it does not biodegrade. It photodegrades, breaking into ever smaller pieces while remaining chemically intact. From a water bottle to a fragment, from a fragment to a microplastic, from a microplastic to a nanoplastic, smaller than a human cell. At no point does it disappear. It just gets smaller, and smaller, and smaller, until it is inside you. There are currently an estimated 16,000 different chemicals used in plastic manufacturing, and scientists have identified more than 1/4 of those as possibly harmful to human health. The first warnings, and how the industry buried them for 50 years. The warnings came early, and they were systematically ignored or suppressed. By the late 1960s, scientists and marine biologists were already publishing papers about plastic debris accumulating in the oceans. In 1972, the same year as the first UN Environment Conference, a landmark paper documented plastic fragments in Atlantic surface waters. Researchers observed plastic in marine plankton in the 1970s. The plastic industry knew. Internal documents, later obtained through litigation and Freedom of Information requests, show that major plastic manufacturers were aware of the pollution problem and the limits of recycling from as early as the 1970s. Their response was not to change the product. Their response was to fund a public relations campaign. In 1988, the plastics industry introduced the now familiar resin identification codes, the numbers 1 through 7 stamped on the bottom of plastic containers. The public largely interpreted these as recycling symbols. They were not. They were identification codes for material type, and the industry knew that most of the plastics marked 3 through 7 would never be commercially recycled. The codes were designed, according to internal memos, to forestall government legislation by giving the appearance of a recycling system without actually building one. The greatest trick the plastic industry ever pulled was convincing the public that recycling would solve the problem they had created. The recycling lie, the biggest environmental fraud in history. Let's talk about recycling, because what most people believe about it is almost entirely wrong. Less than 10% of all plastic ever produced has been recycled. Not in total. Not in any country, less than 10%. Ever. Why? Because plastic recycling is, in most cases, economically unviable. Unlike aluminium, which can be recycled indefinitely and profitably, most plastic degrades in quality with each recycling cycle. The collection, sorting, cleaning, and reprocessing costs typically exceed the value of the recycled material. It is simply cheaper to make new plastic from oil. Of the 7 plastic resin types, only types 1, PET, water bottles, and 2, HDPE, milk jugs, are widely recycled commercially. Types 3 through 7, including PVC, polystyrene, and mixed plastics, are collected in most recycling bins across the world and then sent to landfill or incinerated because there is no viable market for them. For years, wealthy nations sent their plastic recycling to China and Southeast Asia. In 2018, China enacted national sword, banning the import of most plastic waste. The result was immediate. Recycling programs across the United States, Europe, and Australia collapsed overnight. Cities began sending their collected recyclables directly to landfill. The recycling system was not a solution. It was a pressure valve, designed to make consumers feel responsible for a problem created by manufacturers, while those manufacturers continued producing without limit. The ocean, 75 to 199 million tons, already in the water. Every year, 11 million tons of plastic enter the world's oceans, That is a garbage truck's worth every minute. By 2040, according to current projections, it will be a garbage truck's worth every second. In 2025, the total accumulation of plastic in the ocean is estimated at between 75 and 199 million tons. The range is so wide because we cannot accurately measure what we cannot see, and most ocean plastic is not visible on the surface. It is distributed through the water column, embedded in seafloor sediment, and suspended in the bodies of marine creatures at every level of the food chain. Plastic accounts for 85% of all marine litter. Over 1 million seabirds and 100,000 marine animals die from plastic pollution every year. 100% of baby sea turtles tested have plastic in their stomachs. In the Philippines, a beaked whale was found dead and vomiting blood, with over 40 kilograms of plastic bags compacted inside its stomach. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch, the most famous accumulation zone, is not an island of floating bottles. It is a dispersed zone of microplastic particles, roughly twice the size of Texas. Visible only through net sampling, not satellite photography. It is a plastic soup, not a plastic island. And because plastic carries toxic chemicals, acting as a sponge for persistent organic pollutants. Der bin Gyense. Tafes. Cause Nelly Wigger Sikondian other alien spets condiet. Needs set ingest int. It absorb those chemicals too, which travel up the food chain. 1 in 3 fish caught for human consumption contains plastic. The ocean's plastic is now inside the food we eat. Microplastics. How they get into every living thing on Earth. The term microplastic was first used in 2004. It describes plastic fragments smaller than 5 millimeters, from the size of a sesame seed down to smaller than a human cell. They come from everywhere. Your tires shed microplastics every time you drive. Tire rubber fragments are now one of the largest sources of microplastic pollution globally. Your synthetic fleece jacket releases up to 700,000 microplastic fibers in a single wash. Cosmetics, paints, agricultural plastic film, fishing nets, plastic bags breaking down in landfill, all shedding particles continuously. These particles travel on wind and water. They have been found on the summit of Mount Everest. At 8,000 meters above sea level, in Antarctic sea ice, in the deepest sediment of the Mariana Trench, 11 kilometers below the ocean's surface. There is nowhere on Earth that has not been reached. They enter us through 3 routes. Through what we eat, fish, shellfish, salt, fruits, vegetables, meat, and drinking water all contain microplastics. Studies suggest the average person consumes between 78,000 and 211,000 microplastic particles per year through food and water alone. Bottled water contains an average of 94 microplastic particles per liter. Through what we breathe, indoor air is estimated to contain 0.1 to 1.2 particles per cubic meter. Synthetic textiles, furniture, paint, and dust all contribute to airborne microplastic concentration. Through our skin, through cosmetics, synthetic clothing worn against skin, and direct contact with plastic packaging. There is no escape route. Everyone on Earth is currently being exposed. Your body on plastic, blood, brain, placenta, breast milk. In 2022, scientists published the first peer-reviewed confirmation that microplastics are present in human blood. Particles were found in 77% of the blood samples tested. This was not a fringe study. It was published in the journal Environment International by researchers at Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. Since then, the list of confirmed locations in the human body has grown with each passing year. Brain tissue, heart muscle, liver, kidneys, lungs, spleen, lymph nodes, testicles, arteries. Researchers at Stanford Medicine confirmed in January 2025 that microplastics can enter the endothelial cells lining blood vessels and cause major changes in gene expression, raising the possibility that chronic microplastic exposure is contributing to vascular disease, the leading cause of death in the developed world. But perhaps the most disturbing finding of all, microplastics have been found in the human placenta. In a 2021 study using Raman microspectroscopy, plastic fragments were detected in 4 out of 6 human placentas, on both the fetal and maternal sides, in the first stool of newborn babies, in breast milk. Human beings are now contaminated before birth. The phrase that Stanford researcher Dr. Labode used in January 2025 was precise, calm, and devastating. We're born pre-polluted. The body map. Confirmed 2025. Microplastics confirmed in blood, brain, heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, spleen, lymph nodes, testicles, arteries, placenta, breast milk, newborn meconium, every major organ system, every stage of human life. From conception onward. The health reckoning. What the science actually says, and what it doesn't. Let's be honest about what science currently knows, and what it doesn't, because this story requires intellectual honesty. What is confirmed? Microplastics are present throughout the human body. They are present in concentrations that are measurable and, in the case of brain tissue, alarmingly high. A 2024 study found that human brain tissue samples contained significantly more plastic than liver and kidney samples, and that the concentration in brains had increased substantially between 2016 and 2024 samples. The chemicals associated with plastics, BPA, phthalates, PFAS, forever chemicals, flame retardants, are well-documented endocrine disruptors. They interfere with hormone systems. Animal studies link them to reproductive disorders, developmental abnormalities, metabolic disruption, and impaired immune function. 95% of U.S. adults have detectable BPA in their urine. A 2025 Lancet review called Plastics a grave, growing, and under-recognized danger to human and planetary health, and estimated that plastic-related health costs exceed $1.5 trillion annually worldwide. What is not yet confirmed: the precise dose-response relationship. What level of microplastic exposure causes measurable harm in humans? How long particles remain in organs? Whether the body has any mechanism for eliminating them? The honest assessment. We are conducting an uncontrolled experiment on the entire human population with a substance that has never existed before in evolutionary history. And we are waiting for the results to come in. That has never, in the history of public health, ended well. The industry, why production keeps rising. Despite everything we know, here is the question that sits at the center of this entire story. If we know all of this, why are we producing more plastic every year? The answer is money, and specifically, the money of the fossil fuel industry. Up to 99% of plastics are derived from fossil fuels, oil and natural gas. As the world accelerates its shift away from fossil fuels for energy, the oil and gas industry faces an existential revenue problem. Their solution? Dramatically increase plastic production to replace lost fuel revenue. The industry has invested hundreds of billions of dollars in new plastic manufacturing capacity over the past decade, specifically betting that petrochemicals and plastics will compensate for declining demand for oil and gas as fuel. This is why, in August 2024, the global plastic treaty negotiations in Busan, South Korea, collapsed. Countries that are major oil and plastic producers, including Saudi Arabia, Russia, and Iran, blocked any proposals to limit new plastic production. The talks ended without agreement. Plastic production is projected to triple by 2060, not to stay flat, not to decline, to triple, reaching 1,200 million tons per year, according to The Lancet. If that projection holds, the plastic pollution crisis of 2025 will look mild by comparison to 2060. The incentive structure has not changed. The product is profitable. The costs are externalized to the environment, to public health systems, and to the future. What could actually work? Real solutions and the honest prognosis. Is there a solution? Yes. The honest answer is, there are solutions. They are technically feasible. The political will to implement them is the variable. A 2025 Pew Charitable Trust's report, Breaking the Plastic Wave, found that existing policy tools, if fully implemented, could cut plastic pollution by 83% by 2040, not 10%, not 20%, 83%. What works? Reducing production at the source, mandating caps on plastic manufacturing, eliminating subsidies to the fossil fuel and plastics industry. This is the only intervention that addresses the root cause rather than the symptoms. Eliminating single-use plastics. The European Union ban on single-use plastics has already shown measurable results in reducing coastal pollution. India has the world's highest plastic recycling rate at approximately 60%, largely because of a large informal waste collection sector and strong single-use plastic restrictions. Redesigning materials. bioplastics, natural fibers, and materials that actually biodegrade. Not all bioplastics are created equal. Some require industrial composting conditions, but genuine progress is being made. Extended producer responsibility, making manufacturers financially responsible for the end-of-life management of their packaging, changing the economic incentive structure fundamentally. What doesn't work? Individual consumer recycling as the primary strategy. It places the burden on individuals for a systemic problem created by industry. The good news, the tools exist. The bad news, the global treaty designed to deploy them collapsed in 2024. And the industry that needs to be constrained is among the most politically powerful on Earth. This is not a story with a happy ending. Yet, Leo Baekeland wrote in his diary in 1907 that his invention would prove important. He was right. Plastic made modern medicine possible. Sterile, disposable equipment saves millions of lives. It made food safety possible. Packaging that keeps produce fresh for days instead of hours. It made affordable consumer goods possible for billions of people who could not have afforded the natural material alternatives. Plastic is not the villain. The villain is the way we chose to use it. We took a durable, permanent material and decided to use it predominantly for single-use, throwaway applications. Bottles used for 30 seconds, bags used for 12 minutes, packaging used once, and discarded. We built a system where the costs of that decision were paid by the ocean, by wildlife, by the atmosphere. And now, we are learning, by the cells of our own bodies. We now produce more plastic in a single year than existed in the entire world in 1980. The microplastics already in the environment will not disappear in any human-relevant timescale. The plastic already in our bodies, we do not know what it is doing. Every generation, born from here forward, will begin life with a body already containing material that has never existed in human evolutionary history. There are solutions. There is time. The window to act is not yet closed. But it is closing. Ending on an action you can take. Pressure on manufacturers matters more than individual recycling choices. Support for plastic production caps matters. Knowing what you're looking at, the resin codes, the recycling, myths, the health data, matters. The most dangerous thing about plastic is not what it does to the ocean. It is what happens when billions of people are told a comfortable lie about recycling for 40 years and come to believe it. You now know the truth. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, because this story is not yet finished. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep shining bright. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.